Adhikaya Tadali Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tad Bhaktaya Namo Namo. So, good afternoon to each and every one of you. And this time from still in Argentina, Buenos Aires, for my last full day. Tomorrow I'm flying in the afternoon at this time approximately. I'll be flying to Bogota, Colombia for 2 weeks over there before arriving to the US and so on and so forth. So beautiful to meet you again after 1 week of at least me being absent. I know you had your gathering last Saturday. Sorry for not being able to be there. We had some meeting with the local community here. So I had to be there and I wanted to be there. So welcome to SATSANG, trying to increase our participation in reality, basically. Reality is a participatory project, and all of us are invited to jump in with our offering and potential and individuality and all the grace and all the gifts that continue to adorn our existence. So hopefully we can increase our awareness of such blessedness in today's gathering, just by the mere fact of being with all of us together with one another. But on top of that, we are welcoming any questions, any thoughts, doubts that will continue to further add new layers of enrichment to our togetherness. So far I'm seeing 3 hands raised, and the first one comes from Rasangi. So if I'm not mistaken, actually last 2 weeks ago you had one question and I was not able to address that one. So probably that's the one now, or you have a new one after 2 weeks. So many things happen in our lives. So feel free to bring whatever spice you want to add to the masala today, Rasangi.
Thank you, Maharaj. Yes, you have such a good memory. I love that. And it is the question that I had. It's more of like a reflection. And a lot of what we've been talking about is addressed here. And it got me really excited, Maharaj. I'm reading once again.
Jai.
Shri Guru and His grace. And I've been around forever, for such a long time. My husband was here when these talks were being given in India with Srila Sridhar Maharaj. And yet, I don't think I've really ever embraced or opened up to his teachings as I am now. So this really struck me the other day. I'm going to read it, and then I would love to hear you comment on it, if you don't mind. That would be wonderful. Okay, we need society only to help us. If our affinity to the society keeps us down, then that should be given up, and we must march on. There is the absolute consideration and the relative consideration. When they come into clash, the relative must be given up, and the absolute should be accepted. If my inner voice, my spiritual conscience decides that this sort of company cannot really help me, then I will be under painful necessity to give them up and to run towards my destination, wherever my spiritual conscience guides me. Any other course will be hypocrisy, and it will check my real progress. If we are sincere in our attempt, then no one in the world can check us or deceive us. Wow. We can only deceive ourselves. And then nahi kalyanakrit kaschit durgatim tata gachati. We must be true to our own selves and true to the Supreme Lord. We must be sincere. So what I wanted to say about this and have you comment, this was said in 1981, but I did not hear that. And I was not following my inner voice for so many years. I was following the external, the structure from without, the strictures and structure and restrictions. And that dampened my spirit. It put a cap on my seekerhood, It felt like, well, if I was happy as a devotee too, that part of me went kind of went to sleep. And now we don't talk about that much now, even now. You know what I mean? How to trust that inner guidance, how to hone in and really follow it with confidence. And I'm just saying, like, I feel like that is one of the most important things we need to learn, because we're all different. We all have our different paths, even trajectories, right? So if you could speak a little more about this, I know you're trying to help us do this and trust and love ourselves. If you have anything more to say about this, I'm just amazed that it was spoken way back then. And it's till now, you know, that I'm getting confirmation, even from this corner, it's coming. That blessing, that guidance, that confirmation. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll share a few words about Srila Sridhar Maharaj first, since I read the comment of Thomas mentioning he's not that familiar with Srila Sridhar Maharaj. And even if we are familiar, or we think we are familiar, we can ever get more and more familiar, because we are talking about great souls, Mahatmas. Mahatma means big-hearted, big-minded souls. So they are like bottomless oceans, so we can never speak enough about them. We can never get familiar enough with them in the good sense of the term, right? So Srila Sridhar Maharaj, or Srila Bhaktiraksak Sridharadeva Goswami Maharaj, to use the longest title possible, if you will. It can be even longer. Some of you know he was one of the most renowned disciples of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada, considered by many like one of his most intimate associates and how to say, more deepest representatives of his Gurudev. And we can go in so many directions about him. Of course, I have personally a very deep affinity with Srila Sridhar Maharaj. I feel that he's a person, he speaks beyond time, because you were saying, Rosangi, okay, this was spoken in 1981, but that's a relative consideration going to Srila Sridhar Maharaj's words. No? From the absolute consideration, he's talking from a beyond time perspective, right? So that's why his words and the words of course, many other great personalities continue to be applicable. But I personally feel that specifically Srila Sridhar Maharaj's words and style of presentation was way ahead of his time. And that's why one can still, I was talking actually about exactly this with a dear friend of mine yesterday here, and we were talking about how Srila Sridhar Maharaj's language was so, so ahead of his time, and so flexible and so broad and so, how to say, he was so expert at deconstructing paradigms. And he himself will describe himself as a form breaker, right? He will speak about Srila Prabhupada Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj, who was a dear friend of his, as a form maker, as a way of praising him, of course. No, like Prabhupada was very empowered to create, no, the society he created and give shape to so much. In that sense, form maker. And Srila Sridhar Maharaj will humbly describe himself as a form breaker, right? Like inviting, after certain forms and structures and ideas were established for good, he will humbly and gently, because he will do this very gently, as a real gentleman, he will invite us to think anew and to consider new perspectives on the foundation of what was already given, not dismantling what was given, not downplaying what was already given, especially if we are speaking about devotees who were disciples of Srila Prabhupada Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj. I mean, he will especially honor that connection. Those who will come from that background, Srila Sridhar Maharaj would really embrace them and take them to his lap, so to say, in a very sheltering and affectionate way. And I know Manjwali and many of you could say all this way better than I, because you have had first-hand experience of this. but I'm happy to see your nodding. So I take that as a blessing from those who had that personal experience. So anyhow, he was very, Srila Prabhupada was so empowered in so many directions. Srila Siddhartha Maharaj was empowered in his own unique way. Every great personality bears a type of empowerment, right? So we have also to be careful not to, to over idealize, okay, empowerment means this, and whomever does not do this is not empowered, is not as empowered. There are different forms of being divinely inspired to create a particular result or effect. So Srila Siddhartha Maharaj was a great, to use a term from Jacques Derrida, so I'm going a little bit to another place here. He's a Western philosopher, but he will use the word deconstructionism. So Srila Siddhartha Maharaj was a great deconstructor, to invoke a new construction, a new recreation, to invite us to consider things from newer perspectives and to really make it clear that the nature of reality is deeper and broader than what we think. We are deeper and broader than what we think. Krishna is deeper and broader than what we think. Krishna consciousness is deeper and broader. So we have to be very careful about the temptation of closure, so to say. This is Maya, basically, right? When we say Maya, 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 Maya as illusion means this great temptation of trying to bring closure to things, put labels to things, put things in boxes, people in boxes, in categories, concluding about things. No, but everything is open for further disclosure, not for closure. So Maya means the tendency to cancel disclosure, to not allow unfolding, and try to control and try to measure, which is, by its very definition, an illusion. Is not possible. So anyhow, Srila Siddhartha Maharaj, and especially his book, of course, Sri Guru and His Grace, which is not a book he wrote, it's just a compilation of sermons that he gave, being the guardian of devotion he was. And that was compiled. Most of those things were shared with disciples of Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada, who went to him after their guru passed away. So that was a very particular period of time, a very bewildering chapter. What to do now, how to move forward, what have we received from our guru, how to make sense of the legacy that now came upon our shoulders, how to properly honor that, what to do with that. It's a big responsibility, beautiful, but big responsibility. So as we know, Srila Prabhupada himself sent his disciples to Srila Siddhartha Maharaj. No? So that's, again, it's a simple point but many devotees still do not know about that, unfortunately. Many devotees who are somehow or other connected with Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada and his society are not much aware of the prominent role that Srila Siddhartha Maharaj played in Srila Prabhupada's role in life, and how Srila Prabhupada considers Srila Siddhartha Maharaj not only a friend, not only an elder, god brother, but he will call him his Siksha Guru, and many other things. I don't want to go there now, but so Srila Siddhartha Maharaj is a very, he was named by his guru, Bhaktiraksak, right? So that in itself should put any discussion against him or any doubt about him to a closure. He's a guardian of devotion. And so he's a caretaker of divine, of bhakti. That has been and continues to be his role, his vocation. He's watering the bhakti lata beach, the creeper of devotion in every heart, in whatever way it's better. That's his non-sectarian approach. He was not an institutional person. He had his institution, but that's just was some kind, again, external form, as he will say. Sometimes that's required, but sometimes it's required to leave that. So in the words you've shared, Rasangi, I hear, and which are famous words, and yeah, I think I read Sri Guru and His Grace minimum 10, 15 times, and of course I'm totally open to continue doing so because it's ever fresh, ever new. And in those particular words, he's really, in my opinion, of course, he's calling for the spirit of a genuine seeker, right? The Saragrahi, an essence seeker, and what should be the ethos, the ethic of a seeker, of a real pilgrim on the path. How willing we must be to let go whatever is not confirming our search, whatever is not getting us closer to the truth. How willing we should be to let that go, and how willing we should be to embrace a deeper form of revelation, whatever form it takes, whatever form needs to be broken for that to happen. Srila Siddha Maharaj will be very fond. I mean, he was a pandit and he knew so many shlokas, but many times, often he will just refer to a few verses, though he knew way more. But he was fond of certain particular verses, and he was so expert in mining them without limit. And one of those will be this famous verse that most of us may know, Sarva Dharmam Parityaja Mamekam Sharanam Vraja, or the conclusion of the Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna is basically calling for leaving aside old, and in his own words, Lasimars will say, all conceptions of religion, you have to be willing to let that go in order to follow Krishna to Vrindavan, to follow the call of the flute. And that doesn't mean only leave conceptions of religions in the sense of, okay, I was a Christian and I was a Muslim and I left that behind and now I'm a Gaudiya Vaishnava. No, now you need to leave many levels of conception of Gaudiya Vaishnavism to follow the call of the flute. And you may be, just in case, a Christian or whatever, and you may not need to live that. I mean, that's not the implication of this verse, of course. It's not a sectarian call. It's just a call it's a call to death, basically. This verse of the Gita is surrender. It's a verse about Sharanagati, and Sharanagati implies dying to so many things, so we can be born to so many other things. That's the beginning of Sharanagati. Anukulyasya sankalpa pratikulyasya varjanam. Accept whatever is favorable for you to get closer to the truth, and reject whatever is unfavorable. And of course, that will be different for each person, and it will be different for us in different stages. But at every stage of our journey, there will be something we need to embrace, and there will be something we need to reject. And a passionate seeker for the truth will be very in sync, very attuned to what's that? What's the call today? That's basically the invitation. Atato Brahma Jignasa. That's how the Vedanta Sutra begins. Atato Brahma Jignasa. Now you're in a human form of life. Now it's time for Brahma Jignasa. So Jignasa means inquiry. Inquiry into the unlimited, into Brahman. Brahman means that which expands and makes everything else to expand. So it's an ever-expanding object of our inquiry, which invites for an ever-expanding journey of inquiry. So it has to be a passionate inquiry. Ultimately, our tradition is, as we said some weeks ago, I think, our path is not a path of intimidation, the path of fear. It's not the path of rules. Ultimately, ours is the path of fascination. That's Raganuga Bhakti. That's loving Radha and Krishna in Vrindavan. That's following Mahaprabhu's steps. It has to be a path of fascination. And when you're fascinated by something, you're kind of obsessed by that thing. You're kind of mad, if I may use the word. It's a type of madness to fall in love with God. You will be expected to become some type of mad person. As Krishna himself is mad, in love for his devotees. We have to acknowledge that. I don't want to sound too too controversial saying God is crazy. But he's mad in love. I mean, there are so many verses in scripture that Krishna is madly in love for his devotees and saying so many things that do not compute for the usual picture of God we may have. So he has no problem saying that full voice in scripture, everyone will get to know about that. I mean, he's the chariot driver of Arjuna. He's the taxi driver of his devotee. And he's becoming world famous for eons as a taxi driver, as an Uber, right? As a menial servant. And Krishna is so fine with that. He's so happy. And he basically, I will say, he has inspired all the artists throughout the ages to, every time you put some cover in the Bhagavad Gita, you put me as a driver there. You put me doing my menial service to my bhaktas. I want every cover, almost every cover of the Gita is the same, right? So Krishna is always there. If you have eyes to see, you see, okay, here I have God as a driver, as a menial servant of his devotee. That's the cover of the Gita. That's a whole portal into the ultimate essence of the text. So God is madly in love with his devotee. And the devotee is madly in love with him. Again, Srimad Bhagavatam. That's the essence of the Bhagavatam, is Srimad. Mad means madness in Sanskrit, literally. And Sri is Sri Radha. So it's the madness of Sri Radha for Bhagavan, but also it's the madness of Bhagavan for Sri Radha and his devotees. So it's all about some type of madness. So what I'm saying all this is, because Srila Sridhar Maharaj here is talking about how gradually we cannot press a button and be madly in love, but we have to keep in mind, I want to pursue the object of my inquiry with commitment, with depth, with endless curiosity and wonder and willingness to serve and love. So it has to be a passionate inquiry. It has to be consuming. Consuming, that's bhakti. Bhakti means all our faculties become consumed in service to Krishna. The sense of touch, of sight, gradually all our different dimensions can be connected with the project of love, the project of bhakti. So Srila Sridhar Maharaj will say, in that spirit, whatever gets in the way of my ideal will be discarded without a second thought. No? That's basically his his stance. No? I have my ideal, and he will be famous for saying, a man is to be judged by his ideal. A lady is to be judged by her ideal. You are your ideal. Even if you have not fully, if you are not fully accomplished in your ideal, but you have a noble ideal and you are serious about pursuing that, you are seen according to that. That's basically what Krishna says in 9:30 Gita. Apichet sudaracharo bhajante mam ananyabha. Even if you still misbehave a lot, if you have a very noble ideal and you're serious about that, sadhureva samantavya, Krishna says, you are a saint for me, Krishna says. In my eyes, you are already a sadhu because you have such an ideal. And you are not using that ideal as spiritual bypassing. You are not exploiting the ideal to cover up for other stuff. You're genuinely trying to fall in love with that. As messy as that is, as miserably as you continue to fail in that pursuit, that ideal is too much to be abandoned. So you continue to pursue that ideal. Krishna says, I'm sold out to you already. In your current messiness, the nobility of your ideal, Krishna is seeing us in our potential, as we already say. Krishna sees us for all that we can be, for all that we can become, what to speak if we are willing to get there. So Srila Sridhar Maharaj's words are that, no? If something gets in the way, whether it's an institutional consideration, a situation with his mentor, with a god brother, with a whatever, anything and everything can happen. I mean, I won't be quick to reject stuff and run away from people or places, but if after due consideration and discernment and insistence and prayer and patience and time, I see that this situation, whatever that may be, is not changing and it's really it's compromising my values, let's put it that way, Srila Sridhar Maharaj will say, you have to leave that place. You have to run from that place, from that situation, from that relationship, or from that pattern, which may be inside of you. It may not have nothing to do with someone else. But yeah, we are committed. That's when he comes with this ideal of the absolute and the relative consideration. The absolute consideration is I'm a servant of the truth. I want to love truth. I want to give my life the truth, beauty, harmony, because that's truth. Satyam Shivam Sundaram. That which is true must be also auspicious and must be also beautiful. So all those are the implications of truth. So I have a vow in that direction. I have committed my life in that direction, he will say. So whatever gets in the way of that, it's relative. I mean, the relative consideration, it is never above the absolute consideration. So So that's important thing, not to relativize the absolute, not to absolutize the relative, which sometimes we end up doing. When we do one, we end up doing the other. No, if I absolutize the relative, I'm relativizing the absolute, and vice versa. So it's important that we have this idea clear in mind, what we are setting up for in the journey, and each one may have a different ideal. Not everyone comes to Krishna consciousness from the same place, and Krishna acknowledges that not everyone is here for the same reasons. Not everyone is practicing bhakti with the same intentions, and this is not to stigmatize anyone, to criticize anyone, just to make a point clear. Not everyone is relating to God from the same place with the same expectations, and not every single person will remain in the same place. In time, we will change. We will realize, oh, I was relating to God from a very mercantile position, from a very utilitarian place, and gradually I'm becoming fascinated and intrigued and charmed by another prospect. As far as I may be, still the prospect of giving myself selflessly, and to love itself and dedicate my existence from a very broad and generous place. That's calling me. So Srila Sriramarsh will say that. So try to be honest about that. Try to connect with people who give you a glimpse of that reality, and try to be sincere. Again, he quoted that line of the Gita that he will translate as sincerity is invincible, which basically he will translate, if you don't want to cheat yourself, nobody can cheat you, right? But we are very expert at cheating ourselves. So so that's why we have to concentrate there. It's not just a cheap line to take. Oh, okay, if I don't cheat myself, nobody will cheat me. Yes, but probably you're cheating yourself a lot. and so that you have to pay attention to that. In which ways I may still be cheating myself and compromising my values, my integrity. Again, I'm doing all this with self-compassion and realism and sustainability, not entering into any neurotic nightmare, right? But yeah, trying to have some integrity. I don't want to cheat myself in the process of becoming a lover of God, right? And the more I'm clear about my ideal, I'm clear about my desire. Yeah, so many things may come on our way, so many proposals, so many things, and we may become distracted at times. That happens, but I will say, if we are honest and sincere and we are well situated, we won't be led astray from the path. No? So yeah, I think his words are empowering, trying to empower each of us, trying to develop hope, and also trying to take responsibility for ourselves, as you were saying, Rasangi. Now we have to also trust to be sincere in one sense means to trust your inner guidance or inner authority, right? In our tradition, we have outer authority. We have the guru, we have the sadhus, we have the shastra. It's an outer authority, if you will, in the sense of it's coming from outside of us to us. And that has to be balanced with inner authority also, because all that is coming from outside, it has to be confirmed from the inside. If not, we are just blind followers, right? Sometimes devotees may say, no, the ultimate authority is the scripture or the guru, but how do you know all that is good for you? Probably, hopefully, you tell me, because I had a personal experience of that, and internally there was some type of confirmation. So then you have inner authority, and that inner authority should continue to happen. It's not that once I had that initial inner authority regarding outer authority, I don't need that inner authority anymore, and I just have to blindly follow outer authority. No, that doesn't work like that. No, it has to always be like a mutual conversation, mutual dance of validation. Outer authority, inner authority, actually both are the same department, just happening to manifest from inside on outside, but it's the same department. No, outer, inner authority are taking you in the same direction. Again, there's not some conspiracy or competition between inner authority and outer authority. It's not that your guru on the outside wants to take you someplace and inside Paramatma says, no, 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 you have to come here. And the guru, no, don't listen to Paramatma, listen to me. That's not the teaching. Actually, the teaching is exactly the opposite. It's the outer guru. It's an external manifestation. Siksha guru is an external manifestation of the Paramatma in the heart of the Chaitya guru. So there has to be it's an alignment, no, of authority figures, no, and when we become sincere and open, we can also act as our own guru in one way, and that's what the Bhagavatam says. So I'm just quoting the Srimad Bhagavatam here. Bhagavatam says at times you have to be your own guru. In other words, you have to develop such a good criterion, and you have to be so well situated that you can give siksha to yourself, so to say. No, you cannot just depend on other people telling you what to do, and when there's no other people, I don't know what to tell myself to do, and I'm absolutely bewildered. Okay, there might be moments or stages that you will be there, but at some point you have to become able to give advice to yourself, proper advice. Like Raghunath Das Goswami will write Manasiksha, right? Instructing the mind. No? And so he himself is becoming a Siksha guru, and he's having an inner dialogue with himself. There's nobody else involved there in one way. So that the principle is there. So yeah, we have to develop some humble sense of confidence and trust, and being empowered to trust our own experience when that's, again, properly aligned, when there is proper sincerity. Again, not to take this cheap, because also we can make this cheap. No, just trust yourself. It's whatever you experience, that's fine. And that may not be the case. So we have to really be honest, sincere, open for guidance, acknowledging the need for further illumination. Yeah. You asked me some thoughts, Rasanga, if it helps.
Maharaj, I was talking with my granddaughter this morning about the current, identifying that current of truth that comes to us from all over. Yeah. You know what I mean? So that's a way to confirm, I believe, our trustworthiness of our inner guidance, and the current, that following that, the river, the current, the wave of truth that's coming to us all the time. We just have to be able to follow it, identify it. Truth is truth. And we know it many times.
Yeah, like many teachers say, many times we just need to get out of the way. And in the sense that the current of truth, get out of the way means put our egos aside. Let's not get out of the way ourselves, but put aside all these filters and assumptions and fears that do not allow us to have a real first-hand experience of the truth that is already coming, so to say, right? So yeah, so that's why sometimes some teachers or traditions will emphasize some work of recognizing the obstacles, the anarthas, as we may like to call them, and so on, the things that get in the way of the real experience that you could have right now, right here. That's basically the spirit, right? Not for you to over-identify with those shortcomings, but just being sincere enough, sober enough to acknowledge there are a few things that are getting in the way of my apperception of reality. No, the bigger picture, all that's happening, I'm just getting a drop of it. So I need to be aware of the things that are getting in the way and move them and work on them. That's one of the first questions, actually, we should ask ourselves, right? If someone is asking many of these how questions, how to do that, how to experience that, how, and maybe the answer is what's getting in the way. Try to think what's getting in the way. What may be getting in the way? Let's try to invoke some, introspection. Like, okay, what I know for sure. I mean, there's so many things it may be getting in the way, but what do I know for sure it's getting in the way? No, and I know that I'm not doing enough for that to for me to put that aside, right? Because if I know this and this and this getting in my way of a real deeper experience, and I'm not doing what I could do for that to be somewhere else and not on my way, well, I mean, that's my immediate homework, so to say. And by doing that, I have to trust the process itself, but by doing that, whatever is lying behind that obstacle will reveal itself, and I will work on that eventually, and so on and so forth. And thus, I will make progress going from more gross shortcomings to subtler and subtler stuff, right? So, and of course, as we always say, it's not just only about what's getting in the way and obstacles. It's also about acknowledging the gifts that are already here that allows us to see the obstacles, and celebrating the possibility of even seeing the obstacle. Probably for eons, we just believed ourselves to be the obstacle. So, okay, after a lifetime, I can differentiate myself from that particular slice of anartha. So wow, I'm gaining a bigger perspective of me, right? And you have to celebrate that. Really, you can organize some party at home or something. Invite your friends. I realize a new slice of anartha, a new layer of peel that I can peel back. Okay, great. Let's move forward. Yeah. Yeah, but at the end of the day, we have to have, as Srila Maharaj will say to conclude this, we should have trust and hope and move forward. Mm-hmm. Trusting the power of God's grace and the power of our own sincerity under the shelter of God's grace, and moving forward, and realizing so many things have happened and are already happening and will continue to happen if I remain aligned with that, with being sincere under the proper shelter and being patient there. Yeah, right? Because needless to say, probably, but we live in times where immediacy is one of the greatest capital sins, I will say, right? In the sense of everything now, here and now. No? So we are not being trained about being patient, understanding that things come in their own time, especially if you are looking after something which is the deepest thing. You should be willing to learn to wait while trusting, not while nothing is going on, while trusting and witnessing the unfolding in your own waiting. But we have to become aware that we are in times and in an environment where everything is faster and faster and quicker and more expedient and more like express and cheaper, of course, and cheaper and cheaper and more superficial, but everything comes right now, right here. So whenever we have to wait about something, sometimes we become too unsettled, because yeah, that's a very strange land we are exploring, but we need to. Yeah.
Thank you. So helpful. Thank you, Maharaj.
Thank you. Srila Bhaktiraksak Sridharadeva Maharaja ki jai. Okay, thank you. Let's move forward to the next raised hand. The last one so far from Thomas. Please, Thomas, you can unmute yourself.
Hare Krishna, Maharaj.
Pleasure to meet you. Thank you for coming.
Blessing to meet you. I just want to express my gratitude to you and to Krishna for arranging you to come into my life at such a critical time in my spiritual path. I just wanted to comment on a couple of things you just said about Srila Siddhar Maharaj. One about the inner guru. I've been reading Prem Bhakti Chandrika daily, and to me that is like the ultimate expression of the inner guru, because in it he's constantly just talking to his mind. He's saying, oh my mind, do not do this. Oh my mind, do this instead. And it's a real meditation on how to be your own inner guru. And because he praises his guru so deeply in the beginning of it, and then goes on to really express like what his guru has given him in his heart. And it's so beautiful how it just flows out of him. And then the last thing he says is, and I don't know what's right or what's wrong. That's like that maintaining that open-mindedness, that uncertainty, that unknown, you know, I don't know what's right or wrong. And yet he just expressed like all of what is right. So I wanted to say that. And what you mentioned about Srila Siddha Maharaj, about you know, like having this ideal and like really not letting anything compromise it. And that's kind of where I'm at right now. You know, I came into Krishna consciousness because I desired a relationship with God. And then when Krishna arranged for me to come in to this, you know, he arranged for me to come into ISKCON. And, you know, I'm in Philadelphia and I'm involved with the ISKCON community here. And I live like, honestly, like I wasn't even involved with anything. And then I bought this house that happened to be like 5 minutes away from the temple. And then someone who I had known ended up passing away, and he was a member of the temple, and we ended up going to a memorial, and I heard this kirtan, and it just like everything just opened up for me. And I said, this is what I want. This is what I've been desiring in my heart. And, you know, this is it. And I just followed my heart, and I just became very active in the community and engaged. And, you know, I just, so like one of the issues I had right off the bat was all of the externality of it, like the external nature of the practice, of the process, because I'm coming from like a contemplative background. I was Buddhist for like 8 years before coming to Krishna consciousness, and so I have a very like rich internal life. You know, I go within myself, all like that's my instinct, that's my intuition, is to go within. And then I came into this process, and it was just like everything was external. Like everyone's running off to this kirtan or that kirtan or this kirtan mela, or going to the temple and doing this service, doing that service, and everyone just seemed like so preoccupied. You know, there wasn't a lot of like focus, there wasn't a lot of connection. And so I felt this like disconnect to that nature, to that quality that I was seeing in the community. And so I took the shelter of this female disciple of Srila Prabhupada, mainly because it was like, you know, I just felt like I had to pick a guru. And it was like, you know, I wasn't really that inspired by a lot of the gurus I was seeing or hearing, and there were some, but I wasn't like that inspired. And I saw her, and I had heard that she was an initiating guru, and so I thought that was, you know, I'm like, I have a rebellious nature, and I thought it was like provocative to like take a female guru, you know. And I admit that, like, I'm reflecting on it. It's been like 2 years now. That could have been my intention at the time. Nature, and maybe it wasn't like the purest intention I had taking shelter of her, but and so, you know, we were developing this relationship, and I don't know, I've just been feeling like after like a year I started feeling like really uninspired by just everything, going to the temple, you know. I don't know, it was just the only word that comes to mind is uninspired. You know, I can't find any other way to articulate it. you know, just everything just seemed like so rote, so ritualistic, and kind of like, you know, it felt like karma kanda, like just fruit, like everything was just about results, 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 you know? And so I expressed this to her, you know, I'm feeling uninspired. Like, I don't know if I can serve this community anymore. Like, I don't know. Like, and then, you know, I heard one of your talks about fitting in or belonging, you know, bouquet or bonsai. Right.
Yeah.
Right. And, you know, and I reflected on like my entry into the community and how like I was trying for a while to like really fit in. You know, I was really trying hard to fit in, and I just never felt like I fit in. And then I started to think, do I belong here? Because of that, you know, inability to fit in, that kind of triggered this thought, do I belong here?
Mm-hmm.
And so I started questioning my relationship to the community. And when I expressed that to her, you know, she was understanding and she thanked me for being so open. And, you know, she encouraged me to like take Bhakti Shastri and like engage myself more intellectually. And, and, so when she suggested that, then I said, well, I don't want to take Bhakti Shastri because that's what all these people that I'm not inspired by, they take Bhakti Shastri and they're not inspiring me. And so what, you know, what am I like, why would I do that?
Mm.
And then like we had a couple more exchanges, and then I had mentioned to her that around that time I had started hearing from Satyanarayan Das Babaji, because he had been, you know, I had heard some things from him, and it's just they started to make sense. But also, you know, he was propagating this Siddhanta of Gaudiya Vaishnavism that seemed in conflict with some of the teachings I had received in ISKCON, and some of the, you know, some of the known teachings of Srila Prabhupada. And that was, you know, just like, I was really, there was just like this paradox that I just didn't know how to reconcile. And I really just like surrendered at that point. Like I didn't know what to do. And her reaction to me hearing from him was, it was just like beyond anything. Like she kind of just revealed this other side of her, you know, that was like very fundamentalist, very narrow, like very like sectarian, or at least that's how it felt to me. That's, you know, how I received it. You know, it was just like, you know, she was like denouncing all Babajis as like sex crazed, you know, they sahajiyas or whatever they call them, you know. You know, you need to be a Brahmin. You won't receive, you know, you won't see prem in this life. You won't go back to Goloka in this life. It'll take you countless lifetimes. Prabhupada promises one lifetime. And then she just started listing all these things that Satyanarayan had done to her in the community, and it was just like, it was overwhelming. I didn't know how to process any of it. You know, I didn't know how to respond to her. It took me like probably a month to even like, you know, utter like a one sentence response. Like, listen, I just need more time. I'm trying to process what's, you know, I'm trying to just do some like inner reflection. And so, yeah, I don't know where I'm at, you know. And another teaching you gave about, you know, what nourished you before is no longer nourishing you now. And that's how I feel like my involvement with this community was very nourishing in the beginning, and it doesn't feel very nourishing now. I just, it's funny because my guru, she's here. She's in Philadelphia right now.
Mm-hmm.
I was just with her this morning. And, it's just like this fundamentalist attitude. I love you because you're so broad-minded and you integrate, all spirituality and all religion, and you just, you pull inspiration from everywhere and anywhere. And that's what's inspiring to me, and I like, I want to seek knowledge. I want to seek wisdom, not just in this tradition, but like a little bit outside of the tradition, but always connected with it, to inspire me in this tradition. Because I am devoted to Lord Chaitanya and his mission. And I'm just at a loss because, and then the whole thing with, female Diksha gurus in ISKCON.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't even know what was going on when I took shelter of her. They presented her as an initiating guru, and then I come to find out there's like a moratorium on female Diksha gurus. And, now I'm just like kind of sitting here like, I don't know if I'll ever get initiated by her. I don't know if I really want to be her disciple. And I'm really trying to reflect on, because I don't think I'm the perfect disciple either. And I've heard you speak on that too. Like, we always want to blame the guru, but like, what kind of disciple am I? And so I'm trying to really reflect on what kind of disciple am I? Like, am I at fault here? Is there something in me? Is there an anartha? Is there some scar? Is there something blocking me from really understanding what she's trying to tell me?
Mm.
Or is what she's telling me wrong and misleading and misguided?
Mm-hmm.
So I just, I'm like at this point where I'm just like totally surrendered, and I'm following her instructions at the moment because I just don't know what else to do. And, I just, she's guided me in the past, and I feel like she's given me good instruction in the past. And then just this reaction to like, what I was doing or who I was hearing from. And it just kind of triggered this. It seems like some scar in her, because when she was very young, she entered the movement. She was a disciple of Prabhupada. And when she was very young, she heard Prabhupada's admonition of his disciples when they went to Vrindavan and started associating with Babaji's. He condemned Babaji's back then. He said, this is all, like, everything she said was like line for line what he had said to his disciples about cautioning them about associating with Babaji's. And so it feels like to me like this is some scar in her that
Mm-hmm.
she has not, made any attempt to like contradict or reconcile or process or, really know for herself. Like, I think she stayed away from Babaji's and just not had any interaction with any of them and has just held this belief. And it's, and so that's hard to, like, is that something as a disciple, like I just accept that about my guru, that, this might be like a fault in her and I just move past it. And, like what's like the criteria for like accepting these things in our guru? And do we move beyond that, or do we, so I don't want to drone on for too long, but this is what's going on with me right now. And
yeah, this is you, Thomas, right now. So
yeah,
thank you for bringing yourself with honesty and rawness and trust So first of all, whatever I may be able to say after these words, first of all, thank you for the vulnerable openness. And I'm sure many of the devotees present here in some way or another, of course, everyone's journey is never the same, but I'm sure almost all of us could relate to some point or other you may have mentioned. You can, of course, raise your hands if you want to show some empathy or connection if you felt connected to some of those things. So welcome to the club. It's not in one sense, it's your experience, but it's our experience as a global, and these are patterns that happen. And this is not to blame any particular institution or to blame any particular guru or to play the victim and point to mistakes outside and that's it. We are not in that, at least personally on this sangha, that's not the mood. And I don't feel that's your mood either. You're just presenting your situation and the bewilderment of, okay, what to do in this particular paradoxical, complex chapter of the journey, which sometimes, of course, the answer to that, to be honest, sometimes is, I don't know, right? Sometimes, I mean, to be honest, I don't think I will give you 2-3 words now that will prove as the magical final solution that would put an end to all your confusion in a minute, because generally that doesn't happen like that. Sometimes we need to really embrace complexity and wait some time, not passively. But of course, regarding what you mentioned, and you have given some details, and that serves as an introduction, because I think it's the first time we are talking to one another almost. So, so of course you can imagine I don't know you much, so I don't like to talk much about someone I don't know. I don't know your guru. I don't know the details besides what you have shared. So I cannot give any final diagnosis. And when can we give any final diagnosis ever, right? But I mean, you mentioned lots of things. One of those is the classical situation, which is, okay, I'm looking for the truth. I'm meeting the devotees. I'm feeling excited, and this is it. And I enter that fully passionate. Everything makes sense. I'm totally inspired, and eventually everything becomes more and more formal and ritualistic and mechanical, and the magic, the original magic, kind of disappeared. And now what, right? And that happens many times, and we need to do something about it. It's not just submitting to a magical formula, waiting for some miracle to happen while I'm not feeling anything, right? So we need to rediscover a new version of Krishna consciousness at that moment. And so many times that has to happen. Relationship to your guru, of course, I will always personally advise, as much as that's possible, dialogue and personal communication with him, with her in this case, about what you are feeling. And hopefully there is place for dialogue, for listening, mutual understanding, mutual encouragement to whatever is best for you at this chapter of the journey, whether it's connected to that particular person and community in a very committed way, or connecting more deeply with some other people, community in complement. Again, doesn't need to be seen as a betrayal, or as long as that happens in a respectful, organic way. Again, trying to clarify as much as we can, because also we don't want just to, okay, I'm no longer inspired here, I'm going there, and I'm not feeling anything with this guru, I'm taking this guru, and in a way that is very, again, very cheap, very uncommitted. We don't want to do that. But also we don't want to force ourselves to remain in a situation when we clearly feel stagnated, we clearly feel like there's no meaning and purpose in me being here. I'm not growing, I'm not experiencing something. So it doesn't mean that you need to escape or reject anything. You need just to recalibrate maybe your situation, and that sometimes entails honest dialogue and conversation and disclosure about how I'm feeling and what do I need, and which problems do I see in the environment, open to be corrected, but also open to maybe I'm right about what I'm seeing. And that's part of community dynamics, because that's part of community dynamics. In every group, you will find people who is more dynamic, less dynamic, more narrow-minded, more broad-minded. Everyone is in their journey, so we cannot just how to say, have to be careful not to be very elitistic in looking for the perfect community, because probably that you will find that one in Golok Vrindavan only. So in every community there will be always some everything, and ultimately your community is your community, is your people, which may be a few of those from one particular group or institution, from more than one group or institution. At the end of the day, at least I'm sharing my own take on this. Of course, not everyone will agree with this. But yeah, my community may be formed by people from different Gaudiya Vaishnava affiliation, from other affiliations, and they will constitute my community. It doesn't mean that I've been initiated by this guru who is affiliated with this institution. So my community is all those who are in that particular institution. That's for me a very external way of speaking about community, which is such a sacred word, right? Mm. So that's another point. And regarding the stance toward Babajis, we have talked about that a few times. Of course, I wouldn't say that Prabhupada himself had anything against Babajis. I mean, his Param Guru was a Babaji, and his Param Guru was a Babaji.
That's
Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Gorkishore Das Babaji. So we have Jagannath Das Babaji. Half of our parampara in the altar are Babaji. So surely we have nothing against Babaji. So we have to properly understand what happened in between, the historical factors, why Prabhupada Bhaktisiddhanta brought in the sannyas order, all the things that need conversation, need unpacking, and need to be understood with sensibility according to the particular context when that happened, and the particular situation where we are now. But of course, I do not agree that we should conclude all Babajis are whatever you want to feel that there. It's like the same as saying all sannyasis are, all grihastas are, all brahmacharis are, all members of ISKCON are, all members of Gaudiya Math branches are. I mean, it's absolutely, it's madness to say that in one sense. With all respect, I mean, just it's so impersonal to judge an individual as part of a whole group and put everyone in the same bag. So it's not personal enough. We have to address every situation personally. So yeah, I know that sometimes some people or devotees or even gurus may how to say, lack certain unpacking capacity of certain statements from our previous acharyas and take a more literal reading to some lines. Well, as you yourself say, okay, Prabhupada cautioned his disciples about connecting with Babajis. So caution doesn't mean that all of them are bad, so to say. Caution may be like Mahaprabhu cautioned his followers whenever they went to visit Vrindavan. He cautioned them about associating with the Brajavasis. Does it mean that the Brajavasis were bad people? No, they were Brajavasis. He just said, you may not be able to fully relate to them. You may get confused. They have a different mood. So the caution comes from that place many times, not necessarily about some ontological failure or fault in the other person. Of course, there are also people who may be, in the name of being a Babaji, doing non-Babaji things, as there are people that in the name of being a sannyasi are doing non-sannyasi things, and in the name of being guru are doing non-guru things. So that's everywhere. Again, you have to normalize that. Those things may happen anywhere and everywhere. So again, I cannot talk specifically for your guru and her particular reaction and from which place that came and the details of that, because again, I don't know her, I don't know the details, I don't know the in-betweens of all that. So I think we have to always be careful not bringing closure about people, especially of course in public forums like this, when we are not talking privately, personally with everyone involved and listening to every detail. We have to be very careful about not just limiting the person to whatever we experience with the person or someone else experience, if we do not take time to further inquire about that person with that person. So that will be another thing in connection to Babajis. Of course, also I know, and we have been talking about that, and recently even talked about that with Namrasa in his podcast. But he asked me about that. No, we talked, and I will mention it briefly. But of course, sometimes in certain groups of Babajis, to say Babajis, I mean sometimes it's you don't need to be a Babaji. You can be a member of what's called a traditional paribar. Some of the lineages coming from Advaita Acharya, Nityananda Prabhu, Gadadhar Pandit, which are not then connected with the line of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, which of course we know Bhaktivinoda Thakur was initiated in Nityananda Paribar and so on. And some of these traditional lineages may have, I mean, I know that, I have first-hand experience of that, they will consider that the lineage coming from Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur is not bona fide. So there is a clear difference of opinion there. So also for me, it makes sense. Again, I'm not justifying anything, but if I'm a guru and I have some disciples, and some of these disciples may be associating with some people that I may know, I'm not speaking about any particular case, I'm talking in general. If the guru knows, okay, that particular group considers our lineage as non-bona fide, that may be disturbing to the faith of the disciple who goes there. Now, there may be some confusion. Of course, there should be also space to talk about that. Okay, why they consider that non-bona fide? How valid is that claim? How much there is an openness for dialogue about the reality of that, or the non-reality of that? Or if there are some apparent differences of opinion in terms of Siddhanta or philosophy. No, when you mentioned that, Thomas, I don't know which particular topic you were referring about, some specific Siddhantic philosophical points that apparently differ from what you've learned in your community. But there may be some of them, at least apparently. To be honest, I wrote my first book, which in one sense is connected to that, to an apparent point of difference of opinion between the books of the Goswamis and more contemporary acharyas, but also explored in more nuance. We see that there are different things being said at different times, in different contexts and situations. So these conversations are way more, again, way more nuanced and complex than sometimes what we want to make of them, what we make of them, like black and white, this is wrong, this is right, this like this versus this. So yeah, all this takes dialogue and conversation. Sorry, Thomas. Yeah.
I mean, that's how it feels sometimes. It's like one side is saying, no, this is right. And the other side is saying, no, this is right. They're being presented, in this black and white. But I mean, I totally agree. Like, it's very nuanced. But what's troubling to me is like, no, this is right. This is right. That's wrong. This is right.
Yeah, and you will find that in both groups probably.
Yeah.
This right. And in one sense, of course, I mean, everyone has some conviction about their ideals, right? I mean, you are in Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's movement you mentioned, and I'm sure you will say, this is right. It's right for me to be here. Of course, it's right for me to be here. No, it shouldn't be right for everyone, and everyone needs to become a follower of Mahaprabhu. But in one sense, you feel this is right. And you have your own claim, you have your own views, but someone else may have a difference of opinion, and we may be able to have a conversation about it. So even if I think, okay, Bhakti is not inherent in the Jiva, and some other will think Bhakti is inherent in the Jiva, because there are lots of Gaudiya Vaishnavas who think in both ways.
No, that's perfect. That's actually a perfect example. That was what I experienced.
Yeah.
Conversation.
Yeah. And probably, who knows, anyhow, in which category I may fall by having the conclusion I have. but yeah, there are differences of opinion, and there are different things that have been said by different acharyas at different times about it. So it's not black and white. That's why I feel like I have to write a whole book about it. And
so like
many people appreciated that, many people did not appreciate that, because for many people it's like, we don't need to talk about this. No.
So Maharaj,
this is right, this is wrong. Again, and this book is presenting a more nuanced exploration, and many people do not want nuance. They want black and white thinking. Because in certain stage, you need black and white thinking. I'm not condemning black and white thinking. It has its use at some part of the journey. At some part of the journey, black and white is suffocating. And you need all the grays, the 256 shades of gray between black and white. And there should be, my point, there should be a place for that. There should be a validation for those who have that necessity. There should be a forum, so to say, an arena for those who had that type of thinking to meet with one another. Even if they have a difference of opinion, at least we can be mature enough to be able to engage in a conversation where we clearly have a different opinion. And we don't need to kill one another. We don't need to shout at one another. We don't need to cancel one another. We don't need to crucify one another, put labels on one another. You are not bona fide. You are wrong. I am right. But just, okay, each one of us have a particular conviction and a particular faith and a particular reading of this theme, whatever that may be. Okay, let's get together and explore our differences together, and understanding we have so much in common apart from that difference. So it's not that we are entirely foreign to one another. Still, we have so much foundational commonality. So let's begin there. And on that foundation, let's explore our differences and love each other despite our differences, not tolerate each other despite our differences. Hopefully love each other despite our differences. I mean, having conversation even, I mean, I don't want to put myself as an example because self-referential can end up being self-reverential, right? So you don't want to go there. But at least in terms of an ideal, I feel that call. I feel, okay, I would like to have a conversation with someone, and I'm doing that already, and I'm planning to continue doing that with some people who I know. For example, to give you a more extreme example, people who think Advaita Vedantins who conclude the ultimate reality is Brahman, no, and nothing else exists. It's only Brahman. Everything is Maya. So I utterly disagree with that idea, but that shouldn't prevent me from having a civilized conversation with that person. And even finding so many common points despite that huge disagreement we have. You follow my point? So what to speak of having conversation with members of my own tradition about, by comparison, in some cases, minor differences. Because if we lack that capacity, we become such dangerous people, right? I mean, I cannot have a single conversation with someone that I disagree in the least with anyone. So I just surround myself by people who only agree with me and validate my own thoughts. I mean, that's just, you're ready for a cult from beginning to end. There's no place for critical thinking, for difference of opinion. I mean, totalitarian regime on its way, right? I mean, that's how these movements begin, basically, right?
Yeah, I mean, and that's how it feels in ISKCON at times, you know, that like
not only in ISKCON, let's be fair, it's not only happening in ISKCON, just for you to know. I'm aware of other groups. I get your point, your experience, but just for you to expand a little, that happens everywhere. It's part of human psychology, right? Cognitive rigidity, tribalism, that's in the DNA of the Bada Jiva, of the conditioned soul. So just to make that plain.
Yeah.
It's so not to justify that and to say let's continue with that, but just to normalize that. Yeah, that's happening everywhere. That's a symptom of certain stage of bhakti, even I will say. I'm not saying that people is not a devotee, that people nothing. It's just a symptom of a certain degree of unfolding under the shelter of Bhakti Devi, right? And still it plays out in a very narrow-minded way, in a very afraid way, I will say. Generally there's lots of fear behind those attitudes. So I think invoking this notion of fear is good to see the whole thing with compassion also. Not to attack the other person without noticing how fearful there may be, about something that is beyond their grasp, beyond their capacity, beyond their comfort zone, and still they are too small to embrace a larger idea. So there may be trembling, though externally it plays out in a way of protesting and attacking and insulting, and we have to cancel them. Behind that, there's so much fear many times, right?
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. I just, if I choose to stay within ISKCON under, with my guru, how, how do I reconcile these differences, and how do I remain involved in this community if there's no openness to this kind of dialogue that you're referring to?
Mm.
Like,
Mm-hmm.
this is where, like, I feel uncomfortable. Like, am I able to stay here, like, intellectually, and in my heart, when I'm doubtful, and I know, certainty is the opposite of faith. And I love that teaching you gave. And but I'm doubting, and I'm like, I don't know if it's increasing my faith in this community or decreasing.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know how to move forward in this environment if the environment is not ripe for, any kind of reconciliation, any kind of deeper understanding. And I know it happens everywhere. And, like, that's why I feel like, well, I might as well stay here, because it's going to happen wherever I go. The grass is not greener on the other side. I know I'm going to encounter these problems anywhere and everywhere. And I don't want to just jump around from one to the next to the next.
Mm-hmm.
But I want honesty. I want, like, openness. I want, vulnerability.
Mm-hmm.
That you've been so nourishing in teaching these principles that I'm just like, I feel there's just such a dearth of, around me.
Yeah.
And I just don't know what to do. Like, and I feel like I'm being disingenuous staying with her, because I'm like, well, I don't know if I subscribe to these teachings at this point.
Mm-hmm.
That you're giving me, like.
Yeah, of course, I cannot tell you what to do, just to begin with. Again, we have been talking a lot in the first question about inner authority. And, and in one sense, the words of Srila Sridhar Maharaj that Rasangi read could be kind of an answer to your question. I'm not telling you what to do. You have to decide that. It doesn't mean that you have to decide something right now, right immediately, and it's black and white decision. And again, it's not like, okay, I have to leave this person, I have to leave the institution, or I have to be fully committed to that. There are different degrees of connection with people also. No, you don't need to fully break a connection with someone, but you may need to complement that with some other type of connection. I don't know. I'm just throwing ideas. I'm not telling what to do. I'm just saying that in certain scenarios, that may be the case. In some cases, I may need to make a total cut and distance from certain people and societies where there is a clear toxic pattern and there's an unwillingness to improve, to listen, to change. And if after some time of insistence and waiting that proves to be the case, okay, you may need to run from that place as soon as possible. That can happen. I'm not denying that possibility, but I'm not saying every time we feel something like that, that means that's the case. Sometimes we need to wait, we may need to insist, we may need to pray, to try to talk, to listen as much as we can. And of course, trusting that there's a willingness to engage in dialogue. And hopefully there's a place for that. And hopefully we can also forgive and be forgiven and wait and be patient and acknowledge and normalize some of these shortcomings happening everywhere and not over-idealize what's going on the other side of the fence, as you said, because it's a great temptation to rush and saying, oh, it seems that in a particular group or sangha, everything is absolutely ideal and impeccable and not like this and this, because here, blah, 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 which I'm not saying you are doing. I'm just saying it's a temptation that we fall into that. And whenever you jump on the other side of the fence, you realize, oh, the same stuff is happening here in its own unique, with its own unique packaging. Of course, I'm not saying every group is the same and it's exactly the same. I'm not saying that. You may find different people. And again, what's a group? A group is not the whole institution and the 3,000 members. ultimately your group, your community, your tribe will be a bunch of individuals with which you resonate. I mean, that's a non-institutional type of affiliation. That's what works for me. Not trans-institutional commitment. Not like I mean, my tribe, my group, my community does not need to be like institutionally validated. No, I cannot depend on a signed paper for me to be told with whom to associate with. That's absolutely impossible for me. For me, for other people, that's required. They feel they need to be. It's okay, and I'm not condemning that. Different species or different stages or different chapters of the journey. Not even better, worse. It's whatever you need.
Yeah.
So that's what I can tell you. I mean, try to pay attention to your heart. Try to take some time for deep introspection. Try to look for as much dialogue and clarity as you can, and bring your vulnerability to the table. And hopefully there is a place for that in connection to your guru, to your community, and take some time for seeing how that unfolds. Maybe you already took that time. I don't know. But of course, again, do not, whatever decision once ends up taking, do it in a way that is going back to our first sharing with Rasang. It's in a way that we are not compromising our ideals, that we are not killing our faith, that we are not going against our core values of looking for truth and honesty and transparency. I mean, we have to remain coherent, right? Coherence is an important word here. No? So whatever step I take, how do I continue traveling with authenticity and integrity, and I'm not betraying myself? That's the worst possible thing I can do. Now, and probably to not betray myself, I may sometimes need to leave groups, need to leave people, need to leave gurus. I'm not telling you about this in particular, that will be your case, but sometimes that can happen. I mean, that was my case, at least. I'm not saying everyone's will be my case, but I'm just showing some extreme example of sometimes so many things need to be left aside in order to remain coherent and authentic to what we perceive as coherent and authentic. I'm not saying I'm absolutely enlightened and got it right in every step, but as much as I can feel and see, I have to be coherent and honest with that. If in time it proved to be wrong and I was loyal to something that was not the ultimate truth, okay, I will align accordingly and trying to upgrade my sense of loyalty. But as much as I can see at the present moment, I'll try to act accordingly to that. No, so try to go there, try to trust that, and not rush also, because these are delicate situations. And yeah, those will be some of my thoughts. Again, talking in an open forum like this, very openly and generally, and getting to know each other a few minutes ago. No, probably in time I may be more able to I'd be more equipped to give something more specific and accurate, or even talking in a more private setting may give place to further unpacking. But I think that's what maybe can be shared today, as far as the space allows. So I hope that helps, Thomas. I don't know.
It does. It does. You always help me, and you've really nourished me in countless ways throughout all of this. And this has been like an icebreaker for me. Like, I've been wanting to just open up to you, and I wasn't expecting anything from this conversation. I really just wanted to open my heart to you, and because
Thank you.
You've done so much for me, and really, like, I really want to express like my deepest gratitude to you and this community. Mm-hmm. I really do feel like you guys are my tribe, and this is my community that I feel nourished by, and so thank you for having an open heart and open mind and hearing me today. Thank you.
Thank you for bringing your heart to the table, and happy to accompany and nourish in whatever ways, and be nourished by your sharing as well. It's always reciprocal. So thank you for the gifts you brought today to us as well.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Thank you, Haribo.
People.
Okay, so we are 1 hour and 30 minutes now, and I don't see any more raised hands. And to be honest, I have another call in half an hour. So I think we'll stop here the official sharing, and invite you for the more private sharing that we always have after our gatherings in the breakout rooms.